So, part two here. These audio recordings these interviews that I listened to were earlier today on the Sean Hannity radio program. And you may like Sean, you may not like Sean. It doesn't matter. He's just a mouthpiece that did the interview. What you need to hear is what these four distinguished gentlemen had to say and understand what their words are, because there's some good guys here and there's some not so good guys. Jim DeMint, Senator of South Carolina, said we are being presented with two really bad choices. All we're doing is kicking the can down the road. Remember what I said. Remember that, we're at 14 trillion now, and all we're looking at is, are we going to go to 24 or 25 trillion down the road? Please. He said the rhetoric you're hearing out of the president and out of the politicians is all posturing. The cuts are made down the road, and here's the scary thing about that. Future Congresses are not bound to whatever this Congress agrees to. If they agree to $100 billion a year in cuts, which, by the way, is nothing compared to where we are, but that's what they're talking about right now, $100 billion a year. If they agree to that, then there's no guarantee that a future Congress in a year and a half, when we get a new Congress, is going to adhere to it. The only thing that is permanent is a constitutional amendment, and that would be the balanced budget amendment. And according to a recent survey, I think it was a CNN survey or Reuters or whatever, 66% of the Americans favor a balanced budget amendment. The other 34%, I don't know what they're thinking. It really ought to be 100% of Americans. I can't imagine anybody, conservative, liberal, whatever, not favoring a balanced budget amendment. But nevertheless, so DeMint is not going to support anything that does not include real reform. And he also doesn't believe that August 2nd is a real date. I've looked at the numbers too, by the way. We take in about $200 billion a month. The debt is about $20 to $30 billion in interest payments. We are not going to default on August 2nd. Not unless somebody, and I won't name who, generates an artificial emergency crisis and creates a severe emergency disaster situation that otherwise doesn't have to exist. What will happen is this. We'll pay the interest on the deficit. We will be able to pay Social Security because that comes out of a separate fund anyway. There is a trust fund with $2.4 trillion in Treasury bills in there that they can draw from. We do have enough money to pay our soldiers and retired military and everything else. What will probably have to get cut is the bureaucracy, and Mark Levin loves to talk about that, and I'm going to introduce you to him in a minute if you're not familiar with him. So I don't see August 2nd as a disaster day either, and I've listened to some very high-level interviews that talk about what you need to know and understand. Again, I'm going to point you to Mark Levin to learn more about that. Now, Eric Cantor and John Boehner. Let me tell you about John Boehner, and I put Eric Cantor in the same vein. I had a high-level luncheon a few months back, and I won't tell you with who or where, but I sat down with a Washington insider who knows Boehner personally. He has sat across the table from him on many occasions. And I said to him point blank, I said, is Boehner part of the problem or part of the solution in Washington, D.C.? And he said, his answer to me was yes. Now, what does that tell you? Boehner is a political animal. He'll do what he has to cut a deal. So bear that in mind as you hear what he and Cantor had to say, because they're on the same page right now. Cantor said, well, we need Barack Obama to come to the table to reduce spending. All right, fine. He doesn't want the risk of an August 2nd passing without a deal. I disagree with Cantor. I really don't think that August 2nd is a big deal. In fact, I think leverage goes up after August 2nd when people find out that the world doesn't end. So he's not comfortable letting it go. He also is playing a defeatist argument, saying we, the Republicans, only carry one of the two houses of the Congress, and of course that's only 1/3 of the government. I don't buy that. The House of Representatives is very powerful, and nothing is going to get passed in our government unless they initiate it. Now, John Boehner also, and the other question that came up with, by the way, do we know what the cuts are going to be? If they agree to $1 trillion in cuts, will they specify? And the answer is no. Are you kidding? That's not negotiating. That's not entering into a deal in good faith. Would you do that personally? Now, John Boehner, when asked about the 12 members of this committee, which are going to make the decisions about the $1 trillion, they're members of Congress who are committed to making serious cuts, serious members. I don't trust him. I'll tell you point blank, I do not trust John Boehner when he says that. Then Sean asked, is there a chance of a tax increase? And Boehner said, maybe? You think about what that means. But then he pointed out that you do have to have 7 votes on a committee and would have to pass the House. Well, again, you don't have control over the House more than a year and a half from now, so I'm not sure that that argument sits well with me. Rand Paul got on, and Rand Paul is a real rising star. He's Ron Paul's son. He's a senator from Kentucky, and he touted a plan by a representative named Connie Mack, which basically, instead of going in the direction of addressing this nonsense, where we're not touching the 62 or 114 trillion gorilla in the corner for entitlements, and we're not really addressing the current debt, more than $1 trillion of it, it's still going to grow. He comes up with a plan that says we got to cut 1% a year across the board, and if you don't want to cut a particular area of the government, then you're going to have to make it up elsewhere. That would be his plan, and it would actually reduce things over time. Think about it. Think about what I'm saying here. Let me just share another couple of quick things, and then we're going to call it a night. Mark Levin, marklevinshow.com. That's M-A-R-K. If you go to audio, you can get free playbacks of his show. He's on live in hundreds of markets across the United States from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. local time. Some stations, of course, play him at a different hour, but his audio playback is free, and you can listen to it either on the computer or download it to your phone or MP3 player. Very powerful, very educated. He is not just a radio jock. He wrote a book called Men in Black. It was all about the Supreme Court. He's done a lot of notable things, and he's a real dog lover. Lastly, you probably know who I am. AlanSills.com. You're going to see this post up on my page, and while you're here, I got to put a plug in. I'd invite you to go to About Me. I'd invite you to go to Work with Al, see what it is I'm doing, because I believe that the business of this country is business, and if we get things straightened out, then things are going to be a lot better for everybody. I personally am more than willing to work with you and help you to build your business. Reach out to me, look at those 2 links, feel free to look at anything else on the page, and you have a great evening, morning, day, whatever it is, whenever you're looking at this. Thank you for your time.